Welcome to Chapter 7, Physical and Cognitive Development in Middle and Late Childhood. This covers the years from 6 to 11 years of age, also known as the elementary school years. In this chapter, we have 4 major topics. I will do a video for each of these 4 topics. Physical changes in health will be this video. Then we will look at children with disabilities. Cognitive changes will by far be the largest of the 4 videos, and then we will have language development. So in this video, we will be looking at physical changes in health. We'll talk briefly about some of these following topics: body growth and change, the brain, motor development, exercise, health, illness, and disease. And so let's start with body growth and change. I'm going to talk about motor development at the same time. So a few facts about how we change in the elementary school years, and we grow about 2 to 3 inches per year. The weight gain is 5 to 7 pounds per year or so. And this is slow, consistent growth during these years until one reaches puberty, when of course there's a rapid increase. But throughout these elementary school years, it's fairly consistent. The head circumference and waist circumference decrease in relation to body height in middle and late childhood. So the head circumference looks more in proportion during these years, the waist circumference more in proportion as the body streamlines, as they're growing taller and losing kind of losing some of their baby fat in a sense, and you will see more streamlined bodies typically, except of course for children that may be suffering from obesity, which we will talk about later. Bones continue to harden during these years. Okay. I also want to mix in motor development while I'm here. And first of all, we have gross motor development, which of course once again refers to large muscle groups, and so using your arms and legs for activities. During these elementary school years, the child's gross motor skills become smoother and more coordinated. Children double their strength capabilities during this period. Overall, boys will tend to have more muscle cells than girls, so they're usually stronger than girls. And of course, they'll also show up in their gross motor skills that boys can usually outperform girls in gross motor skills, running, jumping, feats of strength, etc., because of their increased number of muscle cells. As far as fine motor skills, children tend to show increased dexterity during the elementary school years due to increased myelination of the central nervous system. So as the nervous system becomes more myelinated and speed of communication increases within the central nervous system, this allows children to use their hands for far more intricate maneuvers and motions, like using scissors. They can start to print and write legibly, much more legibly, and draw better pictures, etc. Okay, let's go on. The brain volume stabilizes, as it says here, stops getting bigger it stops getting bigger by the end of middle and late childhood. So the brain volume will stop increasing during this time period. There are significant changes in the structures and regions, especially in the prefrontal cortex. You can see the picture of the brain at the bottom with the prefrontal cortex highlighted. This is considered the highest level in the brain. I mean, it's considered our control center. I've talked about this before. One of the really the most important area of the brain that determines who you are and what your behaviors are in life. Anyways, this increase or these significant changes in the prefrontal cortex leads to more cognitive control in elementary school children. Certainly, if you compare them to preschoolers, they have more impulse control, more emotional regulation goes on. So they certainly have improved their overall control of their impulses, emotions, and also I would say they've improved. The planning abilities, decision making, problem solving abilities as well. All of the and throw in attention abilities as well. All of these are controlled in part by the prefrontal cortex. Okay. There's increased activation in some brain areas, decreased activation in others. We see some decreased activation in certain areas because synaptic pruning has now, come into play much more apparently, much more readily. There's a lot of synaptic pruning that starts after the age of 6 or 7, and it continues, into and throughout adolescence as well. And so we do see a decrease in activity and connections in certain areas of the brain, while others increase it. And this, of course, all depends on which brain areas are being used most prominently. When pathways are used prominently, their connections increase and myelination increases. When pathways are not used, then they may be pruned away, and the pathways will disappear. All right, let's go on. Exercise. There's a lot of benefits, obviously, of exercise. There's a number of them listed here. Things that exercise has been linked to through studies, including such things as, cognitive inhibitory control. That's like impulse control, memory, attention, creativity, and as well as a lower incidence of obesity. That one seems obvious. For the most part, American children do not get enough exercise. I think most of us understand this. We do have a weight problem within the United States at every age level. What parents should do to help make sure that their children don't show obesity issues and that they exercise enough. They should exercise with their children if possible. This is acting as a positive role model. Studies have shown that when children exercise with their parents, they're more likely to continue these activities. They should enroll children in school-based physical activity programs. They've been shown to be effective in helping control obesity issues, and they should decrease a child's screen time. Okay. And finally, we have health, illness, and disease. Middle and late childhood overall is a time of excellent health. Disease and death are less prevalent during middle and late childhood compared to other periods of childhood and adolescence. We do see a decrease in these years. And this should make some sense. I mean, they're not yet adolescents where they're going to be exposed to new dangers involving things such as, eventually driving, drugs, alcohol, and risk-taking behaviors that show up in adolescence. So they're not quite there yet. But the elementary school children aren't going to suffer from some of the things that a lack of awareness and a lack of attention and knowledge, will affect preschoolers or toddlers. Children in elementary school know enough not to ingest poisons and fall into pools and drown. They are more aware of their surroundings and are more safety conscious. Conscious. Okay, let me go on here. We have actually accidents and injuries. Like many other age categories, motor vehicle accidents are the most common cause of severe injury, as well as most common cause of death in this age category. Overweight children, let's go there. And there are certainly both nature and nurture causes of children being overweight. We have evidence of heredity being a factor, an important factor, actually. I mean, overweight parents do tend to have overweight children. Um, Many studies have shown this. As far as environmental factors, a couple of them are mentioned here: irregular meal times, too much screen time. Some other ones, availability of food, especially high fat food. If you make it more available, then there's more chance of putting weight on, obviously. So if the parents are getting fast food meals for the family much of the time during the week, this just represents an availability of high fat food for the children. Energy saving devices cuts down the level of work and activity that we need to do. Um, Declining physical activity overall. Generation after generation, we've seen each generation slightly declines the amount of physical activity compared to the one before. It has been declining, and parents' eating habits will obviously contribute to overweight children as well. If the parents are eating fattier foods, then the children will copy and imitate their habits, as well as be exposed to the same foods, obviously. So I mean, there's a number of environmental factors as well as heredity factors that can cause children to become overweight. Consequences are listed here: diabetes, hypertension, elevated blood cholesterol levels, as well as low self-esteem and certain social issues. They may suffer from loneliness or have social problems interacting with others because of their weight and how they feel about themselves and how others look upon them. So there are both, physical and emotional problems associated with being overweight. And that is the end of section 1 of chapter 7.